Hi, friend. Jessica Rector here, your host of the Say Yes Experience podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. We are happy to have you. So today we're going to talk about pushing through versus putting on the brakes. Now, this is a reiteration that came to me recently on my trip to Finland with my son Blaze. We went snowshoeing on that trip. Now, if you're not familiar with snowshoeing, I thought it was something easy and simple and a little bit of fun to do, and so why not do it? We took a tour out with a company that we actually took several tours through the same company, Wild About Lapland. Highly recommend them if you're in the area of Finland. And they were an incredible company. What I didn't know is that I thought snowshoeing, where you're putting these shoes, for lack of a better word, on your shoes, and it's basically like these claws that kind of help you walk in the snow on the bottom of boots or snowshoes, and you're basically trekking through snow. Well, I thought it was going to be on level ground, so you're just walking like this with these claws on the bottom of your boots to help you walk easier. Not the case. Well, part of it was the case. They are claws that go on the bottom of your snow boot. What I did not know is that it was about 1.5 miles, and the first half was literally all uphill. Now, for someone who doesn't really work out, someone who doesn't exercise a whole lot, I found it a bit challenging. And so it started with the guide, and then Blaze was next in line, and then me, and then a single lady, and then two parents, and probably a child who's probably about late teens, maybe. And the other couple with their daughter was at the back of the pack. So I'm watching the guide take off, and at first I'm like, yeah, I got this. Woo, I'm right behind Blaze. Yes. Then it's completely uphill. And I feel myself getting tired and worn out pretty quickly. Now, keep in mind, it's about negative 35 degrees outside. Snow everywhere. We're completely bundled up, and it's still super cold. So we had hand warmers in, feet warmers on our feet and our boots, and had hats on, but I also had this big, I don't even know what it's called, scarf that protects my nose and my mouth and neck, and it was super warm. So you want to keep moving, because when you're out in that kind of cold weather and you don't move, your hands easily get cold, even with hand warmers in, especially your fingers. I ended up starting off with gloves over in Finland, and then quickly bought mittens. And by the way, as a complete side note, did you know that when you're wearing gloves or mittens, they actually need to be bigger than your hand, quite bigger than your hand? Now, I bought some gloves in Colorado a couple years ago when I was skiing, and my hands kept getting super cold in them. Well, the salesperson who sold them to me put them fitted on my hand. And what I found out in Finland is there actually needs to be some space, because it helps the air circulate and keep your hands warmer. So just as a side note, if you're ever looking for hands or mittens, gloves or mittens, make sure that they're about 1 inch, 1.5 inches bigger than your actual hand. Keeps your hand warm. Anyway, so we're in the middle of snowshoeing, going uphill, and I quickly find myself getting fatigued, getting tired, out of breath. And I'm like, okay, Jessica, you got this. You got this. Start talking to myself, motivating myself. You can do this. Just keep your eye on Blaze, just one foot in front of the other. And at one point, the guide pauses. He stops for a minute, looks back at everybody. And I told him, I was like, I'm exhausted. How much longer? He's like, well, we got a ways to go. And I was like, holy moly. And so he said, well, when we get to this one point, we can decide if we want to keep on this track. And if we keep on this track, it's actually going to get steeper, but for a shorter period of time, or we can go back and go around to another area. And so as we keep going straight up this hill, I find myself out of breath and out of breath. And so I can see the guide and Blaze, and I just paused for a minute right there in my tracks. I looked back, and the lady behind me was a little bit ways back, and then the couple and their daughter was really far back. And so I thought, okay, good, I'm not the only one. Have you ever felt like that, where you're kind of like, thank goodness I'm not the only one who's tired or who's burned out or is worn out, who feels overwhelmed, who's not perfect, who doesn't have all the answers? You ever felt that way? So I thought, okay, at least I'm not the only one who's struggling to keep up. I mean, Blaze, he's 11. He has all kinds of energy. He was way up there with the guide. And I stopped and I paused. And I take a few really deep breaths just to get myself centered again. Breathe in. Pause. Slowly breathe out. Do that with me now. Breathe in. Pause. Slowly breathe out. Breathe in. Pause. Slowly breathe out. And when you do that, your breathing calms down, your heartbeat stops racing, and you find yourself more at peace. Your mind stops racing as well. Just those deep, long breaths. And then I get going again. And then after several minutes, I do the same thing. And what I find is it's so easy to push through and say, no, I got this. I can do it. Keep going, keep going, keep going. But the more you do that, the more it's actually hurting you. Think about the project that you're working on. Think about a relationship that isn't going well. Think about meetings that last too long. You just keep pushing yourself. Go, go. Think about going to work and school, kids' activities, things at school, all these different things. You keep pushing yourself. Go, go, go. You got this. You can do it. Just one more. And the more that you do that, you're actually not serving yourself, because there's going to come a point in time when you're going to have a meltdown or a breakdown, or you're just going to pass out, faint, and you're not going to know why. Now, maybe you're not going to always pass out or faint, but you're going to have a breakdown, or you're going to be emotionally exhausted. You may start crying or lashing out and not knowing why. And so don't push through. Yes, you can push through for a short period of time, one more step for a few minutes. But then give yourself permission and the space and the grace to take a break. Because when you take a break and allow yourself those deep breaths, you calm your heart rate, you stop your mind from racing, and you allow yourself to be at even keel again. And again, it's easy to keep pushing through, especially when you have other people relying on you. So whether those people are your kids, whether it's a team at work, or maybe you're out on an activity and there's other people there. So that team, there's always going to be someone relying on you to do something. But before you can give to them, before you can push through, before you can take another step, you have to make sure you're giving yourself what you need to fill yourself up, to give yourself the mental capacity, the stamina, the breath, the energy in order for you to keep going. And so breaks, whether you're snowshoeing or throughout your day, at work, in meetings, after school activities, You've got to give yourself those breaks, those stop and pause moments. Now you may be saying, Jessica, if I'm in a meeting at work, I cannot take a break. But you can take a stop and pause moment. When someone is saying something, you want to actively engage and listen. So before you respond, just take a beat. A deep breath in. And slowly letting it out. A deep breath in. And slowly letting it out before you answer. So no matter what team is relying on you, no matter where you are, those breaks become a fundamental part of your day for you to give back to yourself, for you to check in with yourself, find out how you're doing, what you're needing in order to keep going where you need to go. So longer breaks, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, a stop and pause moment can make all the difference and give you the energy and the focus and the determination to keep going. Now, the cool thing about snowshoeing is whenever we got to this point where we could turn back around and then drive somewhere else or go uphill for a shorter distance and then it kind of leveled off, the group chose to go uphill for the shorter distance. Now, you may be asking why, because Jessica, you were worn out and tired, and so were the people behind you. It was hard for them to keep up. But what it showed us is that when we stopped and paused and take a look around at all the beauty that was around us, because it was gorgeous, so beautiful, trees, lots and lots of trees that were covered in snow. Snow on the ground, snow on the trees, snow everywhere. But when you took a beat, a moment, a break, a breath, when you stopped and paused and just looked around and really took in where you were, it gave you a sense of renewal. It recharged you, it re-energized you so you can keep going. And sometimes that's all it takes throughout your day, is just that beat, that moment, that break for you to stop and pause so you can keep going, as opposed to pushing through. Because the more you push through, the more it's going to lead to burnout. And the more burnout you have, the harder it is to actually get out of. So we want you to help you prevent burnout. So the best way to do that is to stop and pause, no matter who's depending upon you. Family, friends, team. Stop and pause and give yourself permission to take those breaks. Because when I allowed myself to do that while snowshoeing, that other part that was uphill for just a little bit longer, I was able to do that. And then we got to our destination and it was incredible. We could see a lake, a frozen lake, and all these trees everywhere was surrounded and covered in snow. And the interesting thing is, on the way back, we went the exact same way back. And on the way back, it was super fast and easy. Why? Because it was all downhill. And so when you stop and pause, give yourself breaks or breaths or moments. It may seem like you're going uphill where you're going initially. And because you've been there before, on the way back, you're going to be going downhill. So it's going to be a lot easier. No matter if you're snowshoeing, running a marathon, going through meetings, doing a project or a presentation, you're going to reach a point that it gets easier. So make sure when you're in the challenges, the issues, the struggle, the mess, you stop, pause, give yourself breaks, moments, and breathers in order to get through it. We'll see you on the next one. Have an amazing day, my friend. Bye-bye.